Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing a GeForce GTX 1070 in GTA 5 Enhanced Edition. This one is the Founders Edition model of the card, a beautiful GPU by the way. I'm running it with the latest Nvidia drivers and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in TechPowerUp's GPU-Z, and over on the left I'm pairing it with the i5-12600KF, overclocked to 5.1 GHz to avoid CPU bottlenecks, and 32 GB of RAM. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's go over the settings first. I'm starting at 1080p resolution, utilizing the maximum settings available for this GPU, which means ray tracing is turned off. It doesn't support it. FSR 3 is set to Native AA, so it's just utilizing the anti-aliasing. Frame generation is turned off right now, and everything else, as I said, is set to the maximum. Aside from, of course, post effects, which introduces motion blur, and I don't like it, so I set it to normal. And here we have it, beautiful GTA 5 in 2025 on a GTX 1070. This game was relevant when this GPU came out, and it's still relevant today because there's a ton of people playing it, of course. And well, the 1070 can indeed run this latest version of, of GTA 5, the Enhanced Edition, obviously, again, without the ray tracing effects, which are the most intensive effects in this version of the game, but it still manages to look a little bit good. I was gonna say better than Legacy version, but maybe not. I mean, maybe if you're seeing things side by side, it might look slightly better here on the Enhanced Edition, but the Legacy version, compared to this one without ray tracing, looks very similar, you know? I think the reflections are still a little bit better here in the Enhanced Edition though, and the lighting sometimes. It will likely drop into the 50s, of course, because, well, okay, I'm sorry, because the vegetation is very intensive in GTA 5, of course, and in Jack's Hill we might see it drop, but so far, so good. So it's dropping into the 60s around here, not too bad actually. Damn. It's holding 60 plus all of the time, so this GPU is still very relevant, as you can see. It can play the latest version of GTA 5, which is not really that big of an achievement because no RT is being utilized again, but still. We gotta remember that this is a 9-year-old GPU. It's coming up to be 10 years old next year, and we're 1 month away from next year, so yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? I should definitely make a full revisit when it turns 10 years old. It should be very fun, actually. Oh, there he is. There he is. I see some pixels that resemble Jack, or Jacqueline, or whatever. Oh, can't really go through this bush. Okay. Jack! This is not Jack. Of course, he's right there. That was Rick, by the way. Hello, Jack. How's it going, buddy? Everything all right? Oh... He's always very beautiful, although he's hiding. Or maybe he just turned into John Cena, I don't know, like, what the heck? Anyway, 58 FPS, 1% lows. I think it only drops from 60 inside of these very intensive bushes, and this is with FSR 3 Native AA as well. I thought we'd need to utilize, like, TAA to get these FPS, 60 plus pretty much all of the time, or 58 plus all of the time, but no. With FSR Native AA, which is pretty intensive, it can hold those 60 plus. So if you can buy a card like this for like 70 bucks or 50 bucks or whatever they're going for used right now, as long as it is below 70 bucks, I think it's a pretty decent deal. You can play some of these older titles, remastered titles, like the Last of Us Part 2 Remastered as well, for example, and it's going to run pretty well. Now, we're using TAA at the moment, just to compare it a little bit. As you can see, the image turned to a soft mess. It's really horrible. Like, this is terrible now compared to the Legacy version. If I was playing this game, or if I was forced to play this game with TAA and didn't have an option for FSR 3 Native AA, I would probably stick to the Legacy version. This is way too soft for my eyes, at least. I don't like it, alright? Although it gets you slightly higher FPS, as you can see now, it barely drops into the 60s. It's mostly 70 plus, with a few drops inside of bushes. Does that make that big of a difference? Not really. I would stick to FSR Native AA at 1080p resolution, and with the maximum settings, aside from those motion blur or post-effects settings, actually. Yeah, there we go. So that's it, 91 FPS average here, 64 1% lows. Let's disable anti-aliasing right now. to see how it looks without it, because in the legacy version, if you turn off anti-aliasing, it will actually look like this. It's very pixelated, it's very jaggy in terms of the edges and everything. It's not a good look, right? But in my opinion, it still looks better like this than with TAA enabled. This, of course, will give you the highest FPS. If you don't mind the shimmery mess that this is, go ahead, play like this, but again, FSR Native AA gives you the best of both worlds here in the Enhanced Edition. The LAA is a little bit better, but of course that's not available in GTX series GPUs. I sometimes get asked, why are you testing a GTX 1070 with FSR and not DLSS? Well, the GTX doesn't support DLSS, otherwise they would be immortal and there would be no reason to buy RTX GPUs. At least from the 20 series. Anyway, now let's enable the frame scaling again, Native AA here, and let's try a bit of frame generation here. We got FSR 3 frame generation available in this game with the 1070. Oh, apparently it sets itself to borderless full screen, so I'll need to set the desktop to 1080p and do this all over again. Okay, here we go. After a restart of the game, we got FSR 3 Native AA with the frame generation enabled. Everything else is set to the same as before. And instantly I can notice a lot of pixelation around Michael there. Like, look at his head, for example, with the bushes behind it. There is kind of like a halo, hazy effect around his head because of the frame generation. That's a bit of artifacting, basically. FPS are definitely higher, as you can see, at 100s, 90s, but it's not quite doubling our frame rate because, well, frame generation doesn't quite double FPS in most games, actually. With these frames, compared to previously, I mean, yeah, it's a little bit smoother, but my main issue here is the fact that there is a ton of input lag right now. And also, they still apparently haven't fixed the duplicated shadows on the ground whenever you're driving really fast with frame generation. So there is a clear line over there that looks very weird, and it's just off-putting, actually. And the fact that it's a little bit softer as well than FSR 3 Native AA also doesn't help it too much. So I wouldn't really utilize frame generation here, guys. I don't think it's a good way to play this game, honestly. You should just set it to native resolution, forget it, and play with those 58 plus FPS all of the time, or 60 plus if you have an overclocked version, basically, because that's just the way to do it. All right, and if you come across bushes, like I'm seeing a lot, or I'm feeling a lot of input lag right now, I can only imagine how it's going to feel inside of bushes, where the FPS are going to drop a little bit further. Yeah, it's just not good. So yes, the GTX 1070 can support FSR frame generation, which is very nice indeed. Oh boy, I always get scared here. But with this much input lag, it's just a bad feel, really. Like, right now, with 70 frames per second, you might think, yeah, that's pretty decent. You gained, like, 10 FPS. That's actually terrible for frame generation, by the way. Especially given the fact that we were getting 10 less FPS previously. It's not doubling our frame rates, and it isn't anywhere close to doubling our frame rates compared to previously. So, this is terrible, basically, guys. Let's disable frame generation here. Doesn't really do much with the 1070, apparently, unfortunately, as well. And I think we should try out 1440p resolution. So here we are, 1440p resolution using Native AA, highest settings available to the 1070, aside from post-effects again. And here we're getting pretty decent FPS still. Like, for this GPU from 2016 to be achieving 60 FPS on average, I guess it's going to get that on average. Maybe not, because the bushes will definitely wreck everything. But yeah, around the city it gets 60 average FPS. That's amazing. Again, it's GTA 5. It came out in 2013, but the 2013 version on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, they were way different than this. Okay, like a lot different. It looks horrible compared to this right now. Now the legacy version, 2015 version on PC doesn't really look all that different, and it does perform better on a GTX 1070. But at the same time, this is the enhanced edition. It's the latest version, and you can experience that with the GTX 1070. It's not better than the legacy version, again, but you can do it. As you can see, it's going to perform pretty well here, even at 1440p resolution, especially if you don't mind a few slowdowns here and there. Oh boy! From 60 FPS. Damn. That was a nice flight. There are bushes here. Inside of them, it gets like lower 40s or mid 40s. Not too terrible again, but I would probably start thinking about lowering down the settings here. You can also utilize like FSR on quality. Let's try that out. This renders the game at 960p and upscales it to 1440p, but as you can see, we gained a bit of FPS. Instead of 40s, we're now closer to 60, but it's still dropping from 60. But the shimmering, man, the noise around the grass especially, it's terrible. Like, everything is super noisy right now. I don't think FSR 3 on quality in this particular title at 1440p is a good way to experience this. Alright, so let's drop down the settings instead. And by the way, there's only minimum, high, and very high available for his GPU, the very high being very close to what we just saw on maximum, aside from post-effects. So I'm just going to set it to high here, all right? And the FSR Native AA as well, no frame generation, so this is it. What is in italic and bold is what changed, so a lot of things are different now, as you can see, and I'm also going to keep post-effects on normal. Alright, this is it. Let's apply the changes. I will restart the game to make sure that everything applies properly, and I'll be back soon. Here we go, 2560 by 1440 resolution. Everything is still the same. FSR Native AA as well, and we're back here where we started, and we're getting very similar FPS to 1080p resolution with the maximum settings for the 1070. So this is very promising, guys. 80 FPS. We went from 60 and below 60, like 45 plus basically on the highest settings, to 80 frames per second here, probably 60 plus. We'll see, of course, in Jack's Hill how that goes. Oh my god. And the game still looks like GTA 5, of course. It still looks decent. I feel like there are a few less cars on the street. I'm not sure if it changed the population density or whatever, or traffic density, but still enough cars, and I guess you could increase that if you wanted to. It doesn't really lose many FPS if you do so. But yeah, this is looking pretty decent, guys. I can notice a few areas in the picture where the quality has been degraded, of course, because we lowered down a preset, basically. Oh, there's a lot of NPCs here still, by the way, so I don't think that changed too much. Okay. Like the reflections quality, there were screen space reflections previously, of course, and they still are, but they were a little bit higher quality previously. It doesn't really matter too much, though. So this is definitely the way to go, my friends. Obviously, the 1% lows will drop now that we are close to grass, but it's not dropping from 60 FPS, as you can see. Hello, Jack. How you going, buddy? Everything all right. He's back here. He likes these settings. I totally recommend these settings as well, by the way, if you want to play this game at 1440p with a GTX 1070. And it's pretty incredible, once again, what this 9-year-old GPU can do. The 10 series were phenomenal cards back when they released, and the GTX 1070 is a magnificent example of that. All right? So the 1070 released in 2016, it was as fast as the GTX 980 Ti from the previous generation. That was the flagship, alright? Above that, there was the Titan, but that was very similar in performance as well to the 980 Ti. So the 1070 matched 980 Ti performance, while consuming considerably less at 150 watts compared to 250 watts on the 980 Ti. It cost half as much at $379, alright, compared to $650 on a 980 Ti, and it even came with 8 GB of VRAM compared to 6 on a 980 Ti. So this was an amazing deal, and it was only 1 year later than a 980 Ti as well. Anyway, it's good to be back, at least testing the GTX 1070, seeing what it's capable of here in the iconic GTA 5. It's probably the game that I've tried the most here in the channel, because it's been around for so long and it's very relevant still, of course, and it has this enhanced edition now. Yeah, it's great. It's great to be back to the 10 series here, guys. Now, you could enable that frame generation. Should we? I mean, at this point, you know that it's not going to enhance our experience by too much. As you can see, we're basically getting the same FPS, but now the image is softer, it has artifacting, and there's tons of input lag, so this is terrible. And if you start moving around like this very fast, it just breaks apart because it's FSR FG, so yeah, don't do this. Okay, don't do this. All right, 3840 by 2160 is next. So 4K resolution. The 1070 wasn't really a 4K gaming GPU back when it released, but it was capable of playing some games at 4K because it was 980 Ti performance, the highest end, you know. And therefore, even if we use 4K resolution in GTA 5 Enhanced, it can actually play the game. If you want 30 FPS, if that's all you want, like for a last-gen console experience, for example, or close to that, but at native resolution and with better graphics, well, you can have that. It's probably going to drop, though. So over here, it might actually dip down from 30 FPS. Goodbye, Bob! Goodbye, Bob and friend of Bob. I don't know which one is Bob, but both of them are here, so we need to get rid of them bastards. But yeah, over here, it might actually dip down. Come on, dude. Okay, there we go. 28, 29. Very intensive, right? This area, this is why I test it over here every single time. It's basically one of the most intensive areas in the game. Let's try like performance FSR here, because at 4K resolution it doesn't look as bad as it did before at 1440p or 1080p. And I mean, I can definitely tell a big difference though. It's softer, it's fuzzier. I don't like it, it's noisier as well, but it gets us 60 FPS and you can still keep the high settings without the need to drop it down to like minimum, because that's the next preset down in this game. Minimum settings. Doesn't sound very good though, does it? So if you want 4K, maybe consider utilizing a little bit of FSR. Perhaps performance a bit too much on the low end, so I'm gonna use quality here. This looks closer to 4K resolution now than it does to 1440p, and it actually does work okay. It's 50 FPS, not going to be the smoothest thing in the world, but, you know, it's a GTX 1070 from 9 years ago. I think it's doing a good job, considering that it's GTA enhanced as well. Now, this still does look worse than native resolution, or native AA here at 4K resolution, by the way, so it's not going to look the same as 4K, like DLSS 4, for example, or FSR 4. It gets really close to DLSS as well, so those forms of upscaling do look considerably better, alright, than FSR 3 here. But that doesn't mean this looks bad. It's just a little bit fuzzier once again, a little bit noisier and shimmery, but not too bad. And I mean, some people might not even notice. If you're using a 4K monitor that's small enough with really high PPI, it's barely noticeable. I am using a 27-inch 4K monitor, and I can notice a big difference, though. So you'd need like a 24-inch 4K monitor, which those aren't common at all. Let's go back to native AA here, and let's try the minimum settings preset. This sets a lot of things to normal. It's still not the lowest settings possible, like reflection quality could go lower, soft shadows as well. And here we go. We still get pretty decent reflections even on the minimum settings preset. That's not too bad. Again, they're not accurate or anything, but they look decent. And here we're getting 40 plus FPS on average, I guess, with 1% lows in the 30s. That's not too bad. I don't think it's going to drop from 30 FPS, so not terrible, especially for 4K native resolution with a GTX 1070. Alright, again, like, it would perform a lot better on the Legacy version, and it would actually be very playable and possibly look better on Legacy, because again, that's just less intensive. You can add more effects, and here you got a lot of them set to the minimum or disabled or whatever. So yeah, it's just a more intensive version, not as well optimized, of course, because it wasn't really made for old cards. I mean, you can run Legacy on a GT 710 pretty well at 720p lowest settings and achieve 30 plus FPS. And a GT 710 is just hell on earth, basically. You know? Hello, Jack. How are you going? Looking beautiful here in this hill without grass now. Yes, minimum settings don't have grass, so that makes it that this area isn't really as intensive as before compared to the rest of the game, but we still have bushes, and it drops into like the mid-30s. Not too bad at all. So yeah, guys, that's about it for this. I think I can still try one more thing, okay? Let's try Quality FSR 3 over here. And this puts us up closer to 60 frames per second. Again, it's a little bit softer. If you're looking for that 4K visual fidelity, really big sharpness, or like very clean visuals, basically, this is not it. But it's close enough, and it just looks like you're using some TAA, and the FPS are definitely noticeably higher right now. It's noticeably smoother. It doesn't really give you those 60 plus that a lot of people are looking for, but I can't really complain with the GTX 1070 once again. It plays games still, right? At least it plays popular games like this. Arc Raiders, for example, super popular title these days, and it actually released in 2025. I have a full video testing this GPU. My god, it actually happened in the video. Damn, okay. Look at this. Crazy stuff. How does it explode like that? Anyway, you can watch the Arc Raiders video here in the channel with the GTX 1070. It was unbelievable. The game actually runs really well on a GTX 1070, and that's UE5. Anyway, guys, with all of that said and done, thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this look at GTA Enhanced on the 1070. I'll catch you in the next one very soon. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.